Welcome to Witchcraft Chats. Come on in and sit for a spell. We're sponsored by Evermoving We Rise, Moonlight Potions and Charms, and Saul Ravencraft, Wizard for Hire. I am Miss Nikki Kirby, your goddess host, and we are here with our co-host, Saul Ravencraft, the craftiest, let's see, what can I call him today? We call him a chaos goddess. What else can I call him?
Hi, Nikki. How are you doing today?
I'm here.
Yeah, but not all here, it seems. That's all right. It's all right. It's nice to have a little vacation in your head from time to time.
Am I always all here? Really? I don't think I'm ever all here.
I have no clue. I really don't. I just flow. I flow with the situation.
Well, that's all you can do, right? Is flow from one situation to the other. I mean, that's what's really required in life, right?
It's true. It's true. And the more I do that, the better things go. It does take practice.
Right. All right. So let's go ahead and introduce our guest today, shall we?
All right, sure.
Okay. A member of the board of Abelina Grove, this guest host is known as the Drum and Mead Guy, as he makes and plays the drums and makes and drinks the mead for the rituals he leads. We'd like to welcome my brother, Karl Kauffman. How are you doing, Karl?
Fantastic, Nikki. How are you?
I am doing great. And you know what? I like to see you drink and play the drums at the same time while you're leading the rituals. That must be awesome. How do you do that?
A lot of practice. Fortunately, my drums, it's not easy. Most people, when they're drumming with sticks, for whatever reason, left hand likes to do the same thing the right hand is doing. So it takes some time to learn how to hold the bottle still and still keep drumming with your right hand. So it took quite a few years of practice.
Well, it's not like a guitar where you can just let that chord ring out while you reach back there.
Yep. Yeah. The drums tend to fade out on their own. Got to keep them.
Yeah, that's true. So, gentlemen, would you like to know what the divination is for today?
Oh, wait.
Yes.
All right. So, as everybody knows, I drink positive energy tea during our Witch Hat chats. So, our today's divination comes from Frank Sinatra. And he says, and I quote, "Alcohol may be man's worst enemy, but the Bible says, love your enemy." So, to my gentlemen callers over here, what does that mean to you?
Well, it makes me think of when people, I saw something the other day that says when people want to eat shrimp or get a tattoo, it's Jesus made a new covenant. And when they want to pick on witches and gay people, it's Deuteronomy this and Leviticus that. But here I'm inclined to lean into the new covenant there. Love your enemy. And I don't mind a little alcohol myself. I'm fond of mead, actually. Got some elderberry mead sitting in the fridge right now.
Yep, I haven't tackled that flavor yet, but I have a tree that's quite full of berries. So.
And how about Karl? What's your input on that?
Well, love your enemy. I've very few times have I ever had to actually embrace an enemy. I don't really know how to answer that. I mean, one thing I've been doing lately is when someone comes up and is shouting in my face or trying to basically bully me, I'll ask them, "What's wrong with you? Are you okay?" So you seem off. If this isn't like you, it stops them every time. It's like flipping a switch. So that's how I approach that. Because people are generally just angry to be angry. So
Fair enough.
Fair enough. I mean, I just like, okay, you got it out of your system. Now let's go party.
Yep, done a lot of that too.
So I can go ahead and tell you personally that I have seen Karl's drums, and they're absolutely amazing. He's very, very good with them. And so I've seen him as he's trying and he's making them, his little drums. So Karl, can you explain your process on how you're making them? And
Absolutely.
I mean, I know you're doing them kind of like a spiritual thing when you're trying to make them.
Yes, it becomes very meditative. The way that I'm going to use a nylon so you can really see the knots and stuff that I'm doing this time. Normally it's tied with rawhide across, but that doesn't show up so good because it's all kind of white. So when you put it on the background of the drum being behind that, you can't see what I'm tying. So actually I can do more light here too. Ooh, there. Okay, and I got started on it. A friend of ours took us to a drum circle at Hugh Taylor Birch Park down here, and it was a huge thing. There was about 600 people, and I saw how moving the drums were. I mean, there were other instruments there, but there must have been 300 people with drums. And as soon as they all got going, everybody got up, started dancing. It's just a level of energy coming out that I had never seen before. It was the first time I've been to a drum circle. So I caught the bug right then and there. I went home that night and made a cajon in the garage because I happened to have the wood to build one. And ever since then, it's been kind of a learning process. I've talked to several shamanistic builders and people that follow a native path, but they themselves are not native. So that's a distinction I want to make right off the bat. You will never hear me call my drums native. They're inspired by that look. A lot of the tying techniques I use are old German. But it kind of bugs me when I see someone who's very obviously not native trying to say that their stuff is like that. So that's not me. And you're right. There's a very deep spiritual, personal connection that goes into the drums. I've made some where I've actually had to dismantle it and put it away. Find out later that the wood came from a house where a death had happened. The rawhide came from somewhere that is not one of my current sources. The sources I use now are cruelty free. And things like that, it binds up your energy. And if you start trying to build them from a point of anger, they come out wrong, and then they'll never play right. And then if whoever picks it up, the anger is going to transfer into them. So that's why I try to keep it clean and very centered. I don't really have a ritual that follows it at all. It's just a kind of a catharsis because I like to work with the wood. There's a mathematical formulas that go into getting these angles. If anybody wants to try their hand at a 5-sided drum, it's 36 degrees to get it to end up like this. And you'll see why I landed on this shape here in a minute. I started making 20-sided ones, and they're perfectly round, and they're tom-tom drums. They're actually have an example of one. Trying to cram a lot of the book. There's a tom-tom. Like I said, it's got a head on both ends, and they sound really good. That's what I started with. But then I decided I wanted something more artistic, so I landed on the 5-sided. And when you tie these right, you wind up with a pentagram on the bottom, which I thought I had one. Should have brought it with me. Give me 1 second. I think it's over here in the bell. Oh, not in there. Where did I put that? Of all the things to misplace.
Well, we'll see that tie at the end of the demonstration, right?
Absolutely. Let me do that right now. Here we go. I came prepared. That's the rawhide. And like I said, this stuff I get from a place called Moscow Fur and Hide out in Washington. And they are really good about taking care of their goats. And that's what this is goat hide. They use them to make milk and cheese. And then once they reach a certain age where they're arthritic, can't really move around that well, they start having health issues. They're humanely euthanized, and then everything is harvested from them. They waste nothing. So I'm very happy with them. But this is not really a measuring. I mean, there is a measuring technique. This is a 11-inch drum. So I have to go back and forth 66 times. So you can measure out and have that number of inches ready. Usually equates to about 31 feet. And I find it's easier most of the time just to pull out even if, it's better to have more and not need it than to not have enough. Yep.
Because you can always cut.
Yes, I make this joke at work all the time. It's hard to cut things longer. If you figure out how to do that, let me know.
So the rawhide, it looked like, had that been soaked? Is that wet, what you're working with?
Yes, I left out a big step there. Usually you want to soak it. If they come processed like these ones, 4 to 6 hours in the water is fine. That'll make them plenty pliable enough. I usually soak mine for 12 to 24 because they're the way I treat them, and then I put a sealer on them. So they need to be the pores need to be a little more open to accept that.
Right.
But yeah, a good 4 to 6 hours soaking in the water is good for most hides. You don't want to leave it too long. Yep.
Is this rawhide cut into the shape of a pentagram, or is it round?
No, they're round.
Okay.
And what'll happen is when I get the corners and everything tied, you'll start seeing it take shape. I'll have to hold it up when I get to that point.
Sure.
Unless I can get it down there. Yep, there it is. Cut the top of my head off again. Sorry.
And the holes in the rawhide, they're pre-made that way when you get them, or do you measure and cut those holes yourself?
Yeah, I have to cut them myself because I have another frame here. As you can see, it doesn't quite line up. It's about ½ an inch bigger than the other one. So that happens sometimes with the frames. And this is a different wood. This is white pine. This is made out of live oak. It was an old border in a house, and it was just in a dumpster. They were going to throw it away. That's where I get a lot of my stuff, my wood. I find it and try to reclaim as much as I can. I hate going and buying wood because that means somebody somewhere cut down a tree. But if the wood's already available, like in a dumpster for a house construction, or sometimes people just throw pallets out by the side of the road, that's where I get a lot of this stuff. And it's very easy to work with that kind of wood. It's soft, it's very forgiving. Sometimes it has a history. I mean, I have drums that I've made out of wood from a 200-year-old barn, and they sold before I even finished tying them. I was building them at a show, and they were gone before I was even done. Because as soon as people heard the age of the wood, they wanted it. That was an old family barn up in Wisconsin. that's a whole other story. Yeah, we had a milking room there that turned into a small winery. That was Grandpa, and that's where I think that genetically is where I got involved with mead. But this particular drum, being the live oak, oops, there, I got a snag. I have the correspondences of the wood right here. I'm just going to find.
So do you have to go through a process to prepare the found wood for what you're doing?
A lot of times what I'll do is I'll leave it out and let, if I know there's going to be a full moon coming, or if I know it's going to be a lot of rain, I will leave it out and let nature clean it, cleanse it, get it back to an unadulterated state, I should say. So any bad juju or anything that might have been with it is washed away by that. You know, sometimes I'll rub them down with a piece of selenite, but a lot of times I'll talk to the wood before I even pick it up. And if I get a sense of any kind of ew from it, then I'll just leave it where it is. Oh yeah, the things in nature that you're going to use to craft with, especially naturally occurring stuff like this hide, this wood, it'll let you know if it wants to be turned into something beautiful. Sometimes it just wants to be where it is. You know, it's I don't want to force my will on something that doesn't want to be moved. That's kind of how the things I think about when I get into this. It just is very centering for what I want to accomplish and what emotions I want to go into this.
So you have to be calm and centered when you're doing this. It's not something that you have to be like, if you're ticked off or something, you don't do.
Yeah, your emotions will go right. That's just about anything that you craft on. Your emotions will go straight into this. And like I said, I've had drums where I've had to just take them completely apart and start over because it wound up being filled with angst. And you know, come to find out it was things with the materials I was using, as well as my own you know, stuff about work, and you can't work in that mindset.
All right. So what we're going to be doing now is we need to go ahead and take a quick break, and
Okay.
we will be right back with Witch Hat Chats. So stay tuned. Anybody can tell you what is on a tarot or oracle card. What matters is seeing beyond what others may not be able to see and help the client to uncover what lies in the mist. What do readings from Moonlight Potions and Charms do? Wednesday, I did this ancestor reading, and it was an amazing reading. And it was a detailed reading. And I remember talking to this customer's ancestors, and it was so delightful. And he wanted some questions to be answered about the magic in his family because he didn't know. And his family was mostly like most of our families are. You know how everything is like hush hush when it comes to the magic in his family. And he wanted to know who can he actually talk to about the history of the magic in his family. And I was able to give him specifically who he can go to talk to about that. What particular deity he can actually go to be able to help him with this. And it was just an amazing reading, and talking to his ancestors. They were such a delight, and they told me so much about this customer. It was just an absolutely wonderful, wonderful reading for him. And I was just so happy to be able to give him this wonderful reading. It's really amazing to be able to give people these readings, these products that's really going to help them, and be able to give back to the community, because this is what Moonlight Potions and Charms is about. We want to help you to embrace the power of your own magic. That is what we are all about. It's to help you to do that. Book now and allow our wonderful staff to take care of your spiritual reading needs. And there is so much more in our Wicked store to help you to embrace the power of your own magic. So come on in to Moonlight Potions and Charms at www.moonlightpotionscharms.com and discover the wicked things that ignite the magical passion in you.
I'm Saul Ravencraft, co-host of Witch Hat Chats. I understand just how confusing and chaotic it can be to open to a path of magic and manifestation. Everything seems to turn on its head. I want to be an ally as you find the way upon your path. My studio setup will let us do readings, coaching, and exploration virtually, just as though you were sitting across the table from me. One size does not fit all, and we will work together to craft the right approaches to build your practice, your confidence, and your power using the tools of divination, magical works, and spirit connections. It's never too late to embrace a new path and emerge empowered. Go to TexasMojoMan.com and select Contact to begin. There's a message now. Let's get started working on your very good fortune.
Have you wondered what spirituality is? Spirituality is limitless, as it does not contain any boundaries on beliefs or practices. Spirituality's most important component is personal experience and allows one to explore it freely. Evermoving We Rise is a spiritual moving tradition, as our name is our lifestyle, because we are persistently rising and moving forward. We realize that everyone's spiritual journey is extremely personal, but more easily traveled with reinforcement. We'll teach you to become friends with your shadow, emerge your authentic self, and give you time and space to develop your own spirituality. And when situations bump back, you'll have the entire community behind you, as we are a magical family who work to sustain each other. Discover the benefits of working within a society dedicated to helping you grow on your personal path. Visit us on our website, Linktree, or Facebook page and discover why we don't fit in the box.
Welcome back to Witch Hat Chats. I am Saul Ravencraft. I am here with Miss Nikki Kirby, and we have been hanging out here during the break, watching Karl continue to tie this drum. It looks like he's getting toward the end here. How long does it take you to tie one of these, Karl?
Depending on size, anywhere from 20 minutes to 3 hours. 3 hours is I build drums out of old wine barrels and stuff, so sometimes they get quite extensive. But one like this, no more than maybe 25, 30 minutes.
Now, you said you're using the nylon for visibility so that we can see what you're doing. Do you ever use nylon on a drum that you produce, or is it always rawhide?
It depends on what the drum tells me. Sometimes the rawhide doesn't work out. The skin itself will be like some of the rawhide I have now. The tie is cowhide and the heads are goat. And what I found out is that the cowhide is quite abrasive, and it can, when you pull it through to do the tightening on the goat hide, it'll rip right through it. It'll cut through it like a saw. So
wow.
certain ones they don't play well with each other. So that's why I work almost exclusively with goat, because it's just a much more forgiving medium.
The forgiving goat.
Yep.
Yeah, I see on some of your drums that you actually have art on them. You know,
Yes,
you draw on some of them.
my mother is a exceedingly good oil and canvas artist. And sometimes when I get done, darn it, what's this string? When I get done with a particularly difficult piece, she will take it and paint with oil and canvas on it. Okay. No, that didn't come out. I missed a string, so that didn't come out quite as. But you see the simple pentagram.
Yeah.
I kind of, yeah. Like I said, I rushed it, but it lines up with the 5 points of the drum, and I'll probably undo it later and tighten it. But that's a quickie representation of. That's where the pentagram shows up. And then sometime what's really neat is when you hold it up like this to the fire, in order to get it to tighten up again. The firelight coming through lights up the pentagram.
Nice.
It's just really, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now this drum head is still wet, so you have to let that dry out at this point.
Yes, right now I just put it on a table, or sometimes I'll hang them up in the garage because it's a little drier out there. And it takes about 24 to 48 hours to really cure down and dry. And during that time, it will shrink by about 4%. So it'll tighten where it's pulled over tight by the string. It'll tighten even deeper onto the drum head. So you'll get a good play out of it. Right now, it won't do anything because it's still too wet. It'll just kind of warble.
Right, right.
If I try to tap it now, it just doesn't really.
Well, here in Texas right now, you could just set it outside on the patio for about 10 minutes and it would be.
Oh, he's in Florida. He's in
Yeah,
Florida.
and that's, well, it's interesting you bring that up. If you dry it out too fast, two things can happen. It can rip the skin or it can shatter the frame because it's got to slowly tighten in and settle. If it goes too quick, and I've had that happen with these side rails. I mean, this isn't going to break, but I've used a 1/4-inch poplar before and did exactly that. I got done tying it. I set it up on the roof of my van in the direct sun. The sidebar just went blew right out of it. So
wow.
that was a scary learning experience.
Understood. And we forgot to ask you to drink mead while you were tying the drum.
Oh, I can do that. This is one we made a couple of years ago. It's called Drunkberry. And what we did was we took cranberries and soaked them in white wine so we could make a big cheese ball. And when we were done we got the wine and we got the cranberries. When we were done with it, we had all these leftover wine-soaked cranberries. So I used them to make this mead and just basically threw them in with the honey and the water and the yeast. And it's quite delicious.
So what got you into drinking mead?
Once again, it was just something a friend of ours we used to be part of a UU Cups group, and every week on Thursdays we would have meetings. And one of the meetings was our friend Genevieve showing us how to make Uncle Joe's Quick Mead. It's a 60-day recipe. It winds up being about 14% alcohol at that point. But you want with mead that you make at home, you really have to embrace patience, because it starts off nice big empty bottle like this. It's called a carboy, and this is your airlock up here. Big point I want to make about doing this at home: sanitize, sanitize, sanitize. Sanitizer is your best friend. You put alcohol or the hyperchlorite sanitizer on everything that the mead's going to touch, and then you'll just let it air dry. But it starts off like this, big empty bottle. And then you have a bunch of little things. Yeast, microscopic, so very little. Honey, which comes from the bees. It doesn't really matter for my tastes. I'll buy whatever the cheapest large amount of honey is that I can get. And these are Kirkland's. They're 5 pounds. They were fairly cheap. They came in a 2-pack. But it's that. And It boils down to being the simplest recipe ever. If you just want to make mead to drink it with your friends and get a buzz going, just honey, regular Fleischmann's yeast that you buy at the grocery store. You want about 3 pounds of honey, about 2 tablespoons of this yeast, and then some warm filtered water. And then you just fill up. This is what all that goes in. And then winds up like this. You see all that foam at the top? That's the yeast doing its thing. That's turning sugar into alcohol. And that's why you have the airlock, so it burps, lets the CO2 out and doesn't let air in, because the air will kill the microbes. Mm-hmm. But this is, I don't know if you can, where did the sign go? Oh yeah, this is the triple espresso. We just made this morning, so you can see, what all you're going to wind up with when you do it. And this has to sit somewhere cool and dry for 60 days. And there's a ton of different things that it was used for, mostly ritualistic. It was also used as a midwinter food source. It's basically liquid bread. It has so much carbs, you get a ton of vitamin B, a ton of vitamin D from it, because of the honey. And it's very old recipes. I mean, they're finding cave paintings showing it being used medicinally going back between 8 and 17,000 years. So, but it's really, really easy to make.
Yeah, my ex-husband used to make wine.
Mm-hmm.
So I pretty much understand the process.
Oh yeah, the whole waiting thing is what most people fail at. But I have recipes that can be done in as quick as 2 weeks, but they don't taste good. All you're looking for there is like rye whiskey, just getting drunk. There's no flavor. But I have a list of some of these good ones. What I showed you is what's known as a metheglin. It's because it's spiced with the coffee. Mm-hmm. So that would be that one. And then your husband that used to do the wine, they have one called Piment. It's mead, but they add the grapes to it. Oh, so yeah. It's like it truly is a honeyed wine.
Oh yeah.
And it's all very good. And sometimes you can back flavor them. You can add different types of alcohol. Like mead plays well with everybody. So if somebody wasn't saying, "Oh, my mead, that's not strong enough for me," you can put a shot of vodka in it, and they'll never know. It's strong enough for them then. I have friends that are drinkers, so sometimes you have to zhuzh them up a little bit.
So you said that after the 60 days that it's going to be about 14% alcohol.
Yes.
Which is pretty healthy.
Yeah, that's right there with most wine.
Now, if you let it sit for longer, like the bottle you showed us, you said it was about 2 years old. What happens over time to the mead?
Much like wines and whiskeys, time is their friend. It allows everything to mellow together. It allows the tannins and the sharp sulfites in the alcohol to come down to it's not quite so dry and biting. It just makes the flavor profile mature. So instead of just like when you drink it right after that 60 days, if I racked it into a bottle and said, "Here, everybody drink," all you'd taste is the alcohol and the yeast. Right. There would be you wouldn't get any of the wildflower honey notes. But after about 2 years, all of those notes start coming to the fore. It takes a while for it to really mature inside the bottle.
Mm-hmm. Is there a best by date for mead, or how long can you let that stuff sit?
How long do you plan to live? It's because of the nature of how it's made with the honey. It's naturally antibiotic. So if you keep a cork in a bottle, you could literally have it generational. It could last hundreds of years.
What's the oldest mead you've tried?
I had a bottle of Utopia Signature. It was 50 years old. And it was like drinking liquid caramel. I mean, to be quite honest, it was closer to a brandy than it was a mead because it had mellowed out so much. It was just so smooth.
And you were telling us where that came from, and where did you get access to that?
My grandfather brought it back from the war.
Wow.
And WW2. He brought back several things, and that was one of the. We didn't know what it was at the time, so we just drank it. And then someone he knows saw the bottle and knew exactly what it was. He's like, "You should have drank that. Could have paid off the house."
Well, what else is it for?
Exactly. That's what he said. It was like, it was good. We'll have memories even now. 40 years after that, I still have a clear vision of that, drinking that with him.
Nice. What's the oldest mead you have in storage of your own?
I have a couple that are about, well, they get drank pretty quick. So I have a couple that are about 3 years old, usually between 2 and 3. And then I'll break them out for the holidays. People come over for Yule or for Ostara, and we'll have it with our rituals that we have here.
Well, you ought to set up a set of bottles that gets put away and one gets opened every 10 years.
It's funny you should say that. I actually have a couple of cases in the garage that are set up exactly for that. They're out there in their own little environment, and I think they're about 3 years old now.
Right.
So, and I have to go look at the labels. I don't remember what they are. I think one's a fruitcake. There's a couple of bottles of pickle. Yes, pickle mead. I have friends that swear by it. I make it every once in a while, and it quite honestly tastes like eating a bread and butter pickle.
Interesting.
If you ever make any blackberry, you got to save some for me.
Okay. And we're coming into berry season, so yeah.
Yeah. You ever offer any to the ancestors?
Oh yes, all the time. Yep, that's what a lot of it. We go out and everybody does their libation, and then we pour out. Sometimes I'll pour out half a bottle right into the fire. So,
is there anything that you do differently with your ritual mead than you do for your recreational mead?
Well, the ritual ones, if I know that that's what a particular bottle is going to be for, we'll decorate it, and it will be blessed and then put aside, so that we know that is separate. That is going to be for a specific purpose. The stuff we drink recreationally, like I said, you just pop a bottle and drink it. It's no different than having a beer. But the ones that we make sacred, they do get put off and are held in a different area before the ritual.
I bet those ancestors really love that mead.
Yeah. Well, some of them, like the one I just bottled this morning, it was Georgia peach. A friend of ours went up to the Carolinas, and their way back through Georgia, they grabbed a couple of bags of peaches, and I made some mead, and she's going to use that one for Yule.
Well, I heard that they had problems in Georgia with their peaches.
Yeah, they were having, I almost want to say it was a water problem. I think there a lot of farms, a lot of places have been having water issues lately. So, but that's why I like mead.
When you add things like peaches to mead, do you just chop them up and drop them in there? Do you cook what you're working with and add that? How does that process work?
There's two schools of thought with it. A lot of times I will just chop up the whole fruit, but things like apples and peaches, anything with a stone in the middle, you want to remove the stone, because if you put the stone in the fermentation process, what will happen is, especially with peaches, you'll wind up with arsenic, because it draws it out of the pit. But any other kind of fruits like oranges, you can put them in, skin, seeds, and all. Raisins, cloves, spices, all of that can go just straight in. Some people like to use a cheesecloth bag to hold everything, and they'll use I don't remember the exact name, but it's a type of tea ball that you can put the yeast in, that it can interact, but it doesn't let the yeast flakes get out into the mead. So you don't have to worry about clarification of everything dropping to the bottom. But most fruits, you just cut them up directly and throw them right in the meat. Or as I said, some people like to use a cheesecloth so that at the end you can take this big lid off and then just take all of that out and throw it away, because you just want the fluid left. You don't want all that solid matter.
Right. So how do you handle the clarification? What do you do about the sediment? Sounds like you're not a cheesecloth kind of guy.
No, it's what's known as racking and re-racking. See, I have an empty one here, and this one that I just made, the espresso one this morning. So what'll happen is once this hits 60 days, the yeast and everything will settle to the bottom. I will very carefully pick it up and pour it into here and allow for a second clarification. And then I have a piece of hose that we use as a siphon to get it out of the big bottle. And there's a filter that clicks onto the end of here. So then I can rack it into bottles, and you wind up with, I don't know how well you can see that, but you wind up with clarity like that. Mm-hmm. So you can see my face through it. Yeah. So yeah, it's all about re-racking and racking. That's the big steps that happen with that, so that you can get perfect clarity. But if you do get a cloudy mead, all that means is that there's immature yeast still floating in the wine itself. It's actually quite healthy for gut health. There's nothing wrong with drinking it. It doesn't affect the flavor at all. It just happens to be in there.
And so my question to you as a magical person, do you use what is left over, like, for example, the Georgia peach pits? Do you use the Georgia peach pits for anything in your magical work?
No, all that kind of stuff goes into compost. So yeah, I know there are magical workings with the pits and stones and seeds of things. I have not found myself drawn to that path, but there is definitely ways to use the dregs after this process is done. The stuff that comes out, you can definitely use it. I know 2 people that will use it in bindings and rejection magic. That's like to keep stuff off your property and push bad away. They use that because it's a representation of something that has been used. So it's all, all of the whatever might be in it has been used up. So now it's clear, and it can either absorb or push away negative energy. That's one person's explanation to me.
Well, I'm seeing all kinds of potential product lines here. We have the official Karl Kauffman mead making kit that comes with your carboys and hose and special recipes. We've got the ritualistically created processed pits and things like that for people that follow that kind of thing. There's a lot sitting on the table here, Karl.
There is. Yep.
You need to talk to your business manager.
I do.
Right. All right,
now,
Karl.
whenever I get time to do it, I take care. Oh, one more important thing with if you're wanting to get into the road of meadery, notebook. Write down absolutely everything you do with every batch you make, because no 2 are exactly the same. Even if you use exactly the same recipe, there's going to be some small difference between the 2. So you can fine tune that way.
All right. So where can our people reach you?
Well, I didn't write it all down. Normally I'm just at Karl Kauffman on Facebook. Just type in my name there and it'll pop up. I also have Wolf Track Drums on Facebook, and Drumming Wolf at gmail.com. That's another one.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was good.
All right. So that's all for our show today. So embrace your power, support your community, and keep your fuzzy babies, your family, friends, and yourself safe, and have an absolute magical week.
I know some people who like to chat. I think they're witches, how about that? And every Sunday at 12 o'clock. And if you're hurting, they're willing to talk. Nikki curving with that black stone. I agree, ever moving we rise. Life and soul will the beautiful mind. I give you blessings under moonlight. I know some people who like to chat. I think they're witches, how about that? And every Sunday at 12 o'clock. And if you're hurting, they're willing to talk.